Break out the tissues for this one. Are we talking about the most emotional reunion the Broncos have ever had by facing Von Miller this weekend? Wow. We're going to talk about it and got just the perfect crew to break it down with. I have Von Miller's former teammate, Super Bowl winning teammates together, Todd Davis, rolling with us. And we've got James Palmer, who's covered Von Miller his entire career, and of course yours truly, to break this down. And before we get into Von Miller, let's talk about the news of the day. The Broncos, they're just dishing out millions, $100 millions of dollars over this past year since the Walton Penner ownership group took over this team just over a year ago. And this morning, we found out that a new headquarters is on its way, new training facility, new headquarters, but it's not moving.
No, it's not moving. So the debate that I was told was, obviously they were looking at every possible scenario. They were looking at other locations. They were looking at moving the facility in its entirety. But to my understanding, it was, you own this land already. Mm-hmm. That's a big, big play in deciding what you want to do with your facility. When you already own the land, you don't need to pay a lease to somebody in terms of where you want to build. And, I mean, look, the man lives maybe not here all the time, but he knows the Penners. Stan Kroenke is a real estate genius. Yeah. He owns all the land across the street from my house. Like, all of it. Some of it's developed, some of it's not. Like, you don't want to pay to people like that. They have the ability to already develop what they have in place, and they wanted to make sure they had enough space to do what they wanted to do. This looks awesome, I'm not going to lie. This looks Todd, are you jealous of this?
Yes, I am. I'm always mad. I felt like it was like, I remember in the 6th grade, I went from elementary to middle school. But the elementary school was right next door. And for some reason, when I left, they built this like awesome play structure, and I was so mad that I couldn't play. And this is what it feels like. New play structure. Everybody gets to enjoy it, but I'm on the outside looking in, man. It looks really nice.
The cool thing that they did do is this offseason, Greg and Kerry Penner went and looked at a bunch of different facilities around the league. Like, they bounced around, talked to other owners, talked to other people in facilities, and we're kind of just really trying to see what was out there and just compare that to what was here in Denver. And I mean, I'm in these facilities around the country all the time. Yeah. They've had upgrades here. They've made some changes here. Mm-hmm. There are some buildings where you're like, are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, compared to what's here in Denver. And they came into this ownership, right, saying we're going to give our players every possible advantage we can. That was the old motto kind of we heard from Pat Bowlen. Yeah. But they have the deepest pockets in the league. Yep. There's no limit on what you can spend on your facility, on your coaching staff, on anybody that works in your building. Yep. Whether it's nutrition, chefs, anything. Like, you can have a full masseuse team if you'd like at all times, 24 hours a day. They're showing it right now that they're going to put their money behind what they'd like to have be successful, and they've done a boatload of work on trying to figure out what's the best case scenario. In
the first 15 months of owning the team, they put a $100 million investment into the stadium. Mm-hmm. They've given one of, if not the biggest contracts to a head coach in Sean Payton by paying him tons of money to bring him in. And now they're spending $175 million on this project. So they've done everything.
They also dropped, like, what was it, like $500,000 or $600,000 for the final game of the season to redo the field. I mean, that was like, to me, I wrote an article on that on NFL.com. I was like, if that doesn't show you what's to come in Denver, like, for one meaningless game, you put a new turf in, like, they're ready, man. They're ready to spend.
And so this is just great news because, like you said, you can spend money. The only thing you have to be careful with is the salary cap. And even then, when you have cash, you can manipulate the salary cap a little bit. And it's just clear that the Broncos have the right owners in place. And another thing about this is something that typically takes a lot of time. not for this ownership group. They didn't waste any time.
Pulled the
They've done
trigger.
all of this in the first 15 months of owning the team. They're starting construction on this next spring, and it's going to be open by the 2026 season. So the speed at which they're doing this is just wild. So if you're watching, what's going to happen is the fields are essentially going to stay where they're at. They already have the Pat Bowlen training center. Or field house, sorry. They're going to build the new facility so everything's connected. Because right now it's like mishmash buildings, not everything's connected. In the cold, you have to walk outside. Now everything's going to be together, and they are still making it where training camp will be there, where fans can be there, where the current facility
because where the fans
is.
are right there, that's where the current facility is.
Exactly. So fans are going to have plenty of space. So this is only good news with the Broncos.
The other part of this, Todd, and I'm curious what your take on this is. I always talk to free agents about why they want to go to certain places. Obviously, money is a driving force. Location is a monster force with guys. It's more valuable than some people think. They just want to play in certain cities, right?
Yep.
Obviously, taxes play a huge part in it as well. You mean I'll play for the Dolphins? No state tax?
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep.
Like, that's a big part. But the ability, Todd, when you can bring in a free agent on a visit and be like, our building, our facility can extend your career. That's a part that free agents look at, right? Like if I'm here and the facility that they have can have me play 2 more years, it weighs into it, doesn't it?
Guys like to be well taken care of. I definitely think we like to be pampered, and we love nice, new, and clean. I've always loved the Broncos facility, but when I went to Minnesota, I was like,
that place is insane.
They had just built it, and I was like, oh, is that our stadium? No, that's just a stadium we use for like high school games. Like they have that at the facility. Like it's beautiful. So I think that was a driving force for me signing there ultimately, and I think it's gonna hopefully bring guys here because that's gonna be bomb.
Yeah.
And remember, the NFLPA did that survey this offseason.
Yeah, Raiders tested well.
Yeah, they
in
did.
the coaching stuff.
They tested really well.
No, terrible in the coaching stuff.
You know who tested awful was the Cardinals, and that like does impact play. I mean, players had to pay for their like lunch and dinner at the Cardinals facility and stuff. It's wild. And so the Broncos got like a mid score on everything, I think is where it kind of boiled down to. And I heard that ownership was just humiliated, embarrassed by it, and said we're going to change that. And so this is something that players will see and be like, damn, this is nice. So I've seen a lot of people be like, man, why didn't they expand to somewhere where there's no restrictions? I was told that the Broncos wanted the best, not necessarily the biggest. So this is going to be the best facility out there. Might not be the biggest, but they're certainly going to have enough room to do everything they need to. And they already have the Pat Bowlen Fieldhouse set up there.
I mean, you're not going to beat the Star. Have you ever been to the Star?
No.
I mean, it's not equating to Super Bowls for the Cowboys, but the Star is incredible.
Yep.
It is unreal.
Is that just the entire Dallas facility?
It's the entire facility. There's hotels, restaurants. He's built everything around it. It's similar to what's in New England, but their stadium is included in New England, right? Patriot Place. Their facility's there, and what Robert Kraft has built around it is incredible. But that's all around the stadium. The Star is all of this around their practice facility, which is nuts. Jerry cares about money more than anything because there is. If you go out to those practice fields at the Star, there's like a fucking hotel straight up.
Yep.
And there are the practice fields, right, Todd? Like if any opposing coach or scout wants to be like, I'll take room 212, please, and can just sit there and watch all of practice. Jerry's like, but that hotel,
Jerry's going to make money off them.
That'll get me some money. But they can see all of practice. It's wild. But that place is, I mean, you're not going to out big that place, but you're right. This is probably going to have every bell and whistle, modern medicine to player support in every capacity. Available to it. It doesn't have to be the biggest to have all of those things available to your players.
Yeah, I remember that Minnesota had a hotel right next to them as well. Like, it was like an Omni, like a 4-star hotel. And so they put you up. They're like, oh, you got to find an apartment. I don't want to find an apartment.
No, I'm cool right
I
here.
want to stay right here.
Yeah, this is great.
You guys are paying for it? Yep, I'll stay here.
I'm fine,
Exactly.
man. This is cool, man. I'm stoked about it.
Me
That's
too.
gonna be cool.
I mean, just 3 years from now, the Broncos will be in it, and just state of the art is what the Broncos are going to have. Von Miller will not be there, though.
Yep.
Since the Broncos moved on from him 2 years ago, I have to ask you guys, is this the biggest reunion that the Broncos have ever had, like playing a former player?
I think in my era, from what I know, I would say yes. Maybe Shannon Sharpe at some time.
That's true. It's a good point. Super Bowl winner as well.
Yeah.
Anything wrap your brain?
I mean, it is so rare. We'll get into it. It is so rare, and Todd witnessed this firsthand being in the locker room, for a defensive player to be not only the face of your franchise, but Vaughn was like the face of the entire Rocky Mountain region.
Yeah.
And for a non-quarterback to be that is next level like stardom. And so, yeah, I don't think there's a comparison to this. This is a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest pass rushers in the history of the NFL, one of the biggest personalities we've ever seen come through this city. Check every single box.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't anything that compares with this. Elway didn't go play somewhere else and come back and play the Broncos. That's really the only other person 100%. I can put in that group
level,
100%.
With Vaughn.
Yeah, 100%. And then on top of all of that, he was so loved by Broncos Country for all the work he did in the community, for his awesome personality, and then also the way that he loved Broncos Country right back. I mean, he was all about Broncos Country his entire career, and he still is all about Broncos Country. When he went to the Rams and then went to the Bills, both places, he still talks about the Broncos as we and us. And it's like, Vaughn, you're doing an interview on Pat McAfee right now, sitting in the Bills facility, and you're talking about the Broncos saying, and you're talking about we.
Yeah.
That, if I was a Bills fan, I'd be losing my mind. But as Broncos Country, that's like the most enduring thing ever. So I really do think that this is like...
That got Josh McDaniels fired.
Yes.
I can pull back the curtain if you want me to, but that's part of the reason I got him
you can't
fired.
just say that. Tell us.
So there was a huge meeting, airing of grievances, as you will, in terms to reference Seinfeld, at Festivus, where everybody tells everybody how much they hate each other. But it was really Josh just wanted an open dialogue out with everybody.
Is he sure he wanted that?
He probably doesn't want it now, because what ended up happening was players, coaches, everybody kind of voiced their issues. And then you have Antonio Pierce, who's now the interim head coach, say in that meeting, you got to have an unbelievable belief in yourself to be successful in this league. The year when I was with the Giants and we beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl and ended their undefeated season, we believed we were going to win that game. We knew we were going to win that game. We knew we were going to beat the Patriots and ruin their undefeated season. Reportedly, afterwards, Josh went back to him and said, how dare you talk about the Patriots like that? You don't talk about the Patriots like that in front of me. Essentially, I'm summarizing. It's not word for word what Josh said to him. That got back to Mark Davis. And what do you think happens when your head coach is going, don't talk about the Patriots like that? You're the head coach of the Raiders. So that did not sit well with Mark Davis at all. But that kind of just reminded me, saying, you can't be saying we when you're with a new organization. Vaughn's getting away with it. He's doing a great job of it.
Because
and it's fine. It's all love. But man, it didn't work for Josh. It didn't work for Josh.
Do you know if that had anything to do with Antonio Pierce becoming the next guy?
I don't know. Well, Antonio Pierce won the press conference. I know that. He was born in a Raiders hat, he said. And then he won his first game. And I've never seen a locker room like that. Like, seriously. Like, Todd, I'm trying to think. What's the vibe after you get a coach fired, essentially? Because the players feel that way. No, the players feel like they get a coach fired. That's usually the vibe in the room. Is like, man, we got this guy fired.
Yeah.
That was not the vibe in the Raiders locker room.
Right.
We got this guy fired. Exact opposite.
I feel like it feels freeing. The only thing I can think about now is like being enslaved and then finding out you're freed. Like, that's how the players feel.
That's how they felt.
They feel like overjoyed. And I felt like even in the locker room, it turned into a players' locker room where guys were giving speeches more so than the head coach had to. Like, Josh Jacobs was up talking about how we came together and put this win together. Like, now this has turned into a players-led team. They were so sick of that coach, and now they feel like they have the ability to kind of take over and run it how they see fit.
And then on the flip side, when a team likes the coach that's fired, they act out. Randy Gregory, at the end of the Rams game last year, he said, I knew that Hackett was going to be fired, and I was so upset because I liked Nathaniel Hackett so much that, remember what Randy Gregory did? He punched a guy, a Rams player, after the game. And so that's when you really like a coach, you get so frustrated, and you probably feel like you let that person down and that you are responsible for firing them. When you don't like the coach, you have cigars in the game after you win. And if you want to have cigars after winning, check out our bet friends over at Bet365. Use the code DNVR365 to get so many cool offers. And over at Bet365, they have a free first bet safety net of $1,000 in bonus bets, or you bet $5 and receive $150 in bonus bets when you sign up using the code DNVR. So check out our friends over at Bet365. Use that code DNVR365 if you want to get in on the action where they have so many different bets. That's what really separates them over at Bet365. So you must be 21 and older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, good one's help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-GAMBLER.
And shout out to our friends over at MSU Denver, where you can turn your goals into greatness. They have courses available online and in person. And actually, spring 2024 applications are open and available. You can start or restart your college education at MSU Denver. The Road Runners.
Yeah, my wife's a road runner.
Yeah, my wife's a road runner.
Yeah, she is.
So
she is.
So excellence awaits you at MSU Denver. They have 90+ majors, or you can create your own. You can find your future, achieve your goals at an affordable education. Degrees range from business to hospitality, aviation to the arts, education to healthcare. Go check out our friends at MSU Denver at msudenver.edu.
One thing the Broncos Country knows is how good Von Miller is. We don't need to talk about how good he is. But how scared should the Broncos be of facing Von Miller this week?
They should be on alert. I think he's going to definitely come ready to play. He's excited, man. This is his former team. He would have loved to retire a Bronco if it was his choice, for sure. But, yeah, when you play your former team, you want to have the best game you've ever had in your entire life. So he's going to come out fired. He's going to be ready to go.
Uh-oh, because Von's had some pretty damn good games in his career. If he wants to make this number one, Broncos should be really scared. And, James, what do you think?
If Von's rushing from that side that he likes to, and he's going against Mike McGlinchey, I think, and he's played a little bit better of late, but Mike's biggest issue lately has been, or throughout this season, has been anybody that can get low and that can get that corner and get around the edge really below the pad level.
Yep.
And that is like Von's signature. I mean, he is arguably the greatest bend in the history of the league in terms of getting around that corner.
Yep.
I mean, he gets, like, I've had, like, and I'm curious what Todd thinks about this too, but I've had, like, defensive line coaches and pass rush specialists, like, just tell me, like, at the size he's at and the strength that he has in his lower body, to be able to get, like, it's almost defying gravity in a sense, the way he comes around the corner. It's just next level. So, yeah, they should be terrified of that in a sense, because that's something that Mike McGlinchey has struggled with. I'm curious what's your favorite Von Miller play?
Oh, man, there's been so many.
And you're just going to say a Super Bowl play, right? Strip sack.
No, I think it was...
Or is there... I guess with this, let's spin it. Instead of just because everybody at home knows every single Von Miller play, because they're all diehard Broncos fans. Like, in practice, was there ever a play where you were just like, oh, my God, like, that's not fair? Because he used to get pulled out of drills sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they weren't working, because Von was ruining it before they could get going in training camp. Is there anything that stands out in your mind that we don't know?
Two things. My favorite play one is there's like a fumble that he takes to the house. We're playing at home. I can't remember the game it is, but I messed up on the play and kind of got blown up. So he saved me. So that was by far one of my favorite plays. And then in practice, it was so funny. Like, he always coached guys up. He was a great coach on the field that we had. But it was so funny, him telling guys things that, like, Von, you can do that.
right.
But you can't just ask, your backup, like, hey, just bend around the score. Just get, like, no, that's specific to you. So it was funny, guys trying to, like, say, like, man, like, I can't do that, man. Like, that's your thing.
Yeah. He's like, what do you mean? Just do it.
Just bend. What are you talking about?
Yeah, just do it.
I remember Payton he was asked if he wanted to be a coach or something, and he was like, I would be so upset by asking people to do things that I just knew they couldn't do that I could. It would drive me crazy. But going back to Von, you mentioned it. In training camp specifically, they'd have to pull Von off the field because the offense would just not be able to function because he would be in the backfield so quickly. And the relationship between Garett Bolles and Von Miller was all time. They absolutely loved each other. Von helped Garett as much as he could, but Von has gone against Garett thousands of times. who's that given upper hand to, Todd? An offensive guy or a defensive guy when you both know each other better than anyone else?
In this case, it has to be Von, because even though you know what I can do, you can't stop what I can do. Like, Garett Bolles is getting much better and has gotten better since the last time he's went against Von in practice. But there's just something about his ability to counter any kind of move that Garett can throw at him. But Garett did hold his own against Chubb. I feel like he did pretty good against Chubb, and they had battles, thousands of battles in practice. So I'm going to give it to Von, but, hopefully Garett shows up ready to play.
When it's like you described it, it usually goes to the better player.
Right.
If you both know each other, it usually goes to the better player. Now, we are still seeing, we have to remember, this is not like peak Vaughn.
Right.
I mean, he's coming off of another ACL. We all know the different timelines it takes everybody. We're watching it happen with Javonte Williams in terms of all of us not having the proper patience of a guy getting back to the same explosiveness that they have. That's one of Vaughn's biggest traits, right, is that first step off the line of scrimmage. A lot of times he's guessing and guesses right, and when he guesses right, it's awesome to watch. When he guesses wrong, what was that like, Todd? Just like, oh, man, 5 yards, there we go. It's all right, though, man. He'll make up for it. He'll get a 9-yard sack.
Yeah, he said that. He's like, I got you. I'll get it. We're good.
It was so funny. I remember because Vaughn is like, it's just like paying taxes. If you want to be a great pass rusher, you got to pay your taxes. And this was when Vance was the coach. And Vaughn said at the press conference, next day we talked to Vance, and we asked Vance, like, is that just something you expect with a great pass rusher? Sometimes they have those penalties. And Vance goes, absolutely not. Unacceptable. You can't do that. We talked to Vaughn the next week. He's like, yep, nope, I'm going to be paying the taxes just like everyone. You're going to have these. And it was just something where typically you would never see that. Typically you'd see like a player after a coach says, no, we're not going to do that. The player's just like, okay, yep, talk to coach. We're not going to do that. And Vaughn's just like, nope, I'm a Hall of Famer. I know what I'm doing. We're paying the taxes.
No coach is going to say, yeah, I'm totally cool with penalties. No head coach is saying that. But yeah, to my point, Vaughn is still a dominant player. He's still unbelievably intelligent at the position, and his football IQ in terms of as a pass rusher is still through the roof. But he's not really right now the player he was even last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember covering him at the beginning of last year in a couple of games. He, early on, it was like week 2 or 3 against the Chiefs. He single-handedly closed the door on that game and won it himself. It was unreal, and I was like,
in Arrowhead, right?
At Arrowhead, and because he sacked Mahomes, and then came out and batted a pass down, and then put Mahomes under pressure, and he on 4th down or whatever, and he threw it away or couldn't complete the pass, and he won the game for him. And I was like, oh, this is why the Bills got Von Miller.
Right.
They're right there with the Chiefs these last couple of years. Yeah. Vaughn's going to put him above. And then obviously the injury happens. But so I don't think he's right now where he was at that point of last year.
Yeah.
And I think he'd be realistic in saying that. Doesn't mean he's not dominant, but I think that's just being realistic where he's at health-wise.
Well, and to be fair too, he missed first month, 5 games of the season, so he's only been back for 2 or 3 games right now. Yeah. And I don't know if he's still on a pitch count. Do you know that, James?
Well, they got a lot of guys up front.
Right.
So I mean, that's the thing in the league right now. I spent this past week talking to a bunch of different coaches about defensive philosophies this season, just because scoring is way down, explosive plays are way down, and really just almost to a man, Todd, it was D-line. D-line is everything right now. That is the number one thing where teams are putting their resources, putting their dollars, their draft picks, and if you can rotate and keep guys fresh, guys like Vaughn would love to have their snaps be limited, in all honesty. Go look at that game Sunday between the Eagles and the Cowboys. You barely see BG out there, right? Brandon Graham's barely out there for Philly. What happens on the final drive? The old man at 35 goes out there and gets 1.5 sacks and helps wreck the game. That's where I see Vaughn continuing to play. If you have a deep defensive line, you can rotate guys up front and stay constantly fresh. And players like Vaughn, who are not sitting there on 1st and 2nd down repeatedly anymore, can make big game-changing plays at the age that they're at. So I don't know if it's essentially a pitch count. They have a lot of guys. Yeah. But they'd like to keep him in positions to make game-changing plays. That's the point you have Von Miller, not to sit there on 1st down, essentially.
100%.
Yeah. I think they want to keep him fresh, like you're saying. And it reminds me of when D-Ware was getting a little bit older.
Yeah.
And his back would bug him a little bit, so he really wouldn't practice during the week. Then come game day, Shaq may take a couple more 1st, 2nd downs. 3rd downs, D-Ware's on the field making plays.
Yeah.
Leaves the game with a sack and a half, had a good day. Maybe play 40 plays, 35, but that's exactly what we needed him to do.
Yep, and I think it might have been DeMarcus's influence on Von, but I remember after DeMarcus left and Von was getting a little, I mean, he was still in his 20s, but he was asked, like, any thought of taking a little step back and really being just a third down guy? And he said it was way too early in his career to be doing this. And he said, no, but I do know that day will come some point for me, and for me to extend my career, that's the path I need to go down. So I think he understands that, and if he wants to set records of sacks, that's exactly how he does it, and he doesn't have to play every down. But to your point, James, about Von not being the typical Von Miller, he doesn't have any sacks this year. Now, again, he missed more games than have actually been played so far, so he's not bad, but he's still not peak Von form right now.
No, he's not. And listen, this defense is not phenomenal right now. I mean, man, they've suffered injuries. I mean, they went out and got Rasul Douglas, obviously, because they're having secondary issues. Losing Matt Milano is like massive. Yeah. Todd would be better at speaking about that than me, knowing the position, but he is so good. Yeah. Like, so good. And he really made that defense go. So, like, this isn't the group that we've seen flash in, like, what I was saying, the first half of last year. Their pass rush dropped off dramatically last season after they lost Vaughn. So it's not like a defense that's going to, like, I mean, that's blowing the doors off of people right now.
Right.
Sean McDermott's still a really good defensive mind, but, like, the injuries that they've lost, they're learning how to play without those guys. And some of those guys, like, it's really hard to replace, and that affects your whole defense.
Yeah. And especially Matt Milano, like, when I used to watch their film, a couple years ago, they had Edmonds and Milano. Yeah. And so you always thought, like, Edmonds was the star and Milano was like his little brother. 6'4" guy with dreads. He was just a monster out there. And it wasn't until they continued to play that you're like, oh, I think Matt's actually the guy. And then he's in there by himself this year, and he's just making play after play. Like, them losing him is one of the biggest losses, I feel like, in the NFL right now.
That's huge. And let's continue this conversation with our guy, Baldy, after I tell you about our friends over at Breckenridge Distillery. We've got some Breckenridge whiskey on set right now. You can grab some in all 50 states, and this is great if you need a present for someone for Christmas, the holiday season. If you're going over to Thanksgiving, you want to bring something nice, check out our friends over at Breckenridge Distillery, the official beer or the official distillery of the Denver Broncos, and they're giving away 2 tickets to the Breckenridge Bourbon Whiskey Suite, which is awesome, for the Chargers New Year's Eve game with the Broncos. How you get in on that, go to BreckenridgeDistillery.com/bourbon-of-Denver-Broncos to check them out. So if you need any Breckenridge Distillery, check them out at BreckenridgeDistillery.com to find the award-winning Breckenridge spirits.
And I know winter is coming, but in Denver, the sun's always out, and we're so close to the sun. You got to make sure that you have on good eyewear, and you should check out our friends over at Shady Rays. And the great thing about Shady Rays is they have this, like, insane protection program to where if you break them or you lose them, they'll give you another pair. Like, you don't have to worry about it. There's no back and forth. You go in there, no questions asked, you get another pair. Right now, they're having 50% off if you use the code DNVR on 2 or more polarizing shades. So go check out our friends over at Shady Rays. I need to get myself some so I could be stylish, look good, feel good. I don't play anymore, but I could, podcast good.
All right, let's bring in our guy, Baldy. Baldy, are you sick of James Palmer yet? You just can't escape this guy.
Good to see you again, Baldy.
I was done with James. Hell no, man. JP's awesome, man. He's plugged in, does his homework. Love doing television with James.
This is going to be 2 shows in one day, Baldy, and then on Thursday we're together again.
We got that Philly thing going on.
We really do. We really do, Baldy. I'm not going to lie.
If I don't cut off the Philly talk, I know Philly people can just talk about Philly all day.
Yeah, it's a big win for the Eagles.
It was.
They're on a bye.
Huge win and huge game coming up for the Broncos. And Baldy, something that we've been talking about is Von Miller playing the Broncos again. And one of the questions that I asked these guys is Garett Bolles and Von Miller have gone up against each other thousands of times in training camp and practices. And from an offensive lineman's perspective, like who has an advantage in that situation when a pass rusher and an offensive lineman know each other more than anyone in the league?
Well, I mean, Von has the advantage. He's just a more talented player, and he's playing at home, where it's just very different. For Garett, it's, the noise is a factor. You got to handle the atmosphere. I'm not saying, same thing going to Denver for a lot of players, but you're on the road in Buffalo, and, they're coming off a horrendous defeat. So, like, they're going to be, making as much noise as possible. And now you got, Von reacting in that type of situation. I mean, that's a tough spot for Garett right now. But look, the fact that just because you're practicing against a guy for a number of years and you feel like you've seen the arsenal of Von Miller moves, you still don't really know what's coming. And I feel like Von, even though he's been back for a couple of weeks, he really hasn't made any kind of Von Miller plays yet. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like he feels like he's got to get it started. Offensively, they struggle week in, week out, depending on who they're playing against. And maybe the defense feels like they need to step up and help the offense out. And I'm sure Von feels that way.
I think Von, he's definitely coming back and getting back to, who he is as a player. But outside of him, there's 10 other guys on that defense, and they haven't been primarily playing well together and have had some injuries. How do the Broncos really take advantage of this defense that's missing some pieces and not playing their best?
Well, there's a reason why they traded for Rasul Douglas. I mean, they're a zone team, and, their corners had not played well. Tre'Davious White, was injured, locked for the season. You look at Kaiir Elam, looks like he's a first-round bust at this point. Christian Benford was a 6th-round pick out of Villanova. He's been in and out of the line. They need corners to play that style of defense. And then, look, Greg Rousseau is a guy that, drafted high. They need a more consistent effort from him. But I would say, considering they lost Matt Milano, I would say the inside linebackers have played well. So, they do what they do. They're two safeties, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. They're not going to let the ball go over their head. Like the deep shots just aren't going to be there. Everything will be in front of them. That is pretty much a guarantee in that style of defense.
Baldy, I want to go to the other side of the ball because this has fascinated me this year, what we've seen out of this Bills offense. It's like Stephon Diggs is playing well. He's getting his. Josh Allen is playing well. Dalton Kincaid of late, when they lost Dawson Knox, has done well the last couple weeks. The offensive line has protected, but at the same time, the offense hasn't been consistently good. It was wild after this past game where, Sean McDermott's asked it, Josh Allen's asked it, and they don't really have something to put their finger on about what's wrong with this offense. What do you see when you look at the film, Baldy?
Well, when I watched last week's game against Cincinnati, honestly, James, I thought it was Groundhog Day from the playoff loss to Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Like, they just got whipped up front. They couldn't pass stunts up front. Josh Allen is running for his life. He can't set his feet and throw balls on timing. And so then you get literally Josh Allen just running around, trying to find open receivers. And he does that at times. The week before, hit Dalton Kincaid on that kind of a play for a touchdown. It looked nice. But against good defenses like Cincinnati and these defenses that you're going to see in the playoffs in the AFC are real. I mean, I saw Baltimore last week, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Kansas City. Like, these defenses don't have weaknesses, James. Mm-hmm. And so if you're getting broken down up front and you're like, okay, we'll just get it to Diggs. Okay, well, they got an answer for it. And so against poor teams and teams that don't defend the way some of the elite teams do in this league, which are dictating all these outcomes, where Detroit goes to Baltimore and they get trounced. Seattle goes to Baltimore, they just get trounced. Cincinnati goes to San Francisco, they just trounce them. Like, when you go up against the half a dozen elite defenses right now, you better be productive and fundamentally sound offensively.
And Baldy, that leads me to, there's a lot of questions surrounding how do you combat that when you do have the talent that we're talking about the Bills have on offense, right? Like, is that on Ken Dorsey? Is that on, Josh Allen's essentially become their run game. It's spread it out. Josh is the run game, right? Is there something, though, during the week that needs to change, in terms of combating some of these problems for this Bills offense?
Well, they went and got Connor McGovern in free agency. They went and drafted Osiris Torrance, at guard. Mm-hmm. Those are a lot of, expensive pieces that they plugged in. A lot of chips pushed to upgrade the offensive line, yet Cincinnati tore them apart. And it's not every play. It's just one guy gets beat, and Josh Allen is out there. I know Tom Brady criticized Josh Allen, I think, last week, James, about taking off. You got to protect yourself. Well, if he doesn't do that, their offense doesn't have a chance.
Doesn't go. Yeah.
Yeah. And even if they're playing, even if James Cook is running the ball well, and, they just, obviously just picked up a big Lenny, like, they're trying to get a better power running game up front. And so to kind of combat that, so Josh doesn't have to run for it on third down and fourth down to get these first downs. So you can see the reason for that move. We'll see what happens. But they need better balance in their offense. And it just doesn't exist some weeks. Not every week, but some weeks when it doesn't exist, they put up 10 points.
It's fascinating.
And so, Baldy, you talk about how these really good defenses cause the Bills' offense fits. Do the Broncos have that caliber of defense, or has it just been too hit or miss so far that you're not comfortable saying that yet?
I wouldn't put them in that category. And look, all the numbers are skewered because of the Miami game and what happened in the year. Like, that's not that defense anymore. So you can't really look at those numbers. You got to look in the last 3 weeks, 2 games against Kansas City. Like, they've played very well. So I kind of feel like, they found their pass rushers. They have their change-ups that they like to do with linebackers and what they do with Benito and some of the change-ups that they have. Like, I'm sure Benito will do some of the similar things that he did to Patrick Mahomes that he'll do against, Josh Allen. We'll see how that goes. We'll see what they design. But I wouldn't put them in the category of Baltimore. Baltimore leads this league in sacks. Geno Stone leads in interceptions. Like, I wouldn't put them – they don't have a Myles Garrett in Cleveland. They don't have the variety and the players that Kansas City have to do all the different things Kansas City does. So I wouldn't put them in those, in the elite category yet. But I would say they're climbing into that second level right now with a chance to get better because they look like their communication is a lot better. They're playing faster. They're attacking the line of scrimmage. The pass rush is getting home. So I feel, and they're making plays in the back end. So I feel like they're getting better, but I wouldn't put them in that elite category right now.
This team and the city has been really riding high since that Kansas City win. I felt like the team played really great. Guys in the locker room are talking about playoffs and Super Bowls now. When you look at the back half of their roster and you got the Patriots, the Vikings with a new quarterback, the Chargers twice who really haven't found their footing as a team. If the Broncos are able to beat the Bills, is the sky really the limit for the team?
Don't play that game. Like, I know it's fun. It's fun. Like, we're all fans. It's fun, and I understand all of it. But man, I hope the players aren't doing that. Like, it's you've got 2 in a row. You got the biggest win they've had. That's what Sean Payton was here to do, to turn this thing around. Always the division games, they count double. So you want to win. You want to think about the playoffs, win division games. So they beat Kansas City. All right, beat the Chargers. But it all starts, like, so here's the deal. Like, Buffalo is a quality team, and you go into Buffalo and you win on Sunday. That's the best plane ride all year coming home. From Buffalo back to Denver, the card games, the action, like the fun, like it's just, that's camaraderie. Like that, everybody that knows, when you win big games on the road, there's nothing more fun that unites a team. And then you can start thinking like that. Yeah. Let's get after Justin Herbert the way we got Josh Allen and Mahomes. So, that's okay. You're allowed 24 hours, right? Well, that'd be a good 24 hours right there on that plane ride home.
Baldy, I want to mention one player specifically. We were going to head over to the corner store on the NFL Report Mondays and Thursdays, catch it on a podcast or on the NFL Fast channel, and we were going to talk corners, but we ran out of time. Jaquan McMillan, you wanted to talk about him. What do you like about his game right now? I know you wanted to talk about it with us, so now get a chance to talk about it here with everybody in Denver.
Well, he's been their nickel corner, I think, for the last 3 weeks. Maybe it's 4, James. But, everybody needs that position. Everybody's got to find that guy. And you can't just take outside guys and put them inside. You can't say, okay, Patrick Surtain, you go inside and play. It's a separate position because of how physical it is. The runs get you attacked. This weekend, you're going to see a great nickel corner in Taron Johnson, number 7 for Buffalo. Like, he's born to play that position. You put him outside, like, he's not an outside corner. But like Kenny Moore is that guy in Indianapolis. Like, you need to find that guy in your defense. And it doesn't matter if he's drafted, undrafted, free. Like, you need that guy. And I feel like Jaquan is growing. Like, he accepts his role. Most teams are 3 wide receiver or 4 in this league. And so you're on the field a lot. And, that interception of Mahomes last week was an elite play. That's one that you literally make sure the ball boy protects. More importantly, that you're taking that one home. You're putting that up in your trophy case.
Oh, yeah.
You're taking one from Mahomes. So I feel like that's anybody watching the Denver Broncos right now, that's a guy that you should keep your eyes on, because I feel like they found Fabian Moreau. Like, he did the same thing last year with the Giants. Like, he can play, and he's serviceable outside. And obviously Surtain, but like, that's a position of need for every defense, James.
Yeah,
I love it.
I was just gonna say, when during the bye week I had a chance to talk to some guys on that side of the ball, Baldy, and they just said, like, they use the term that we all know, right? That's the biggest compliment out there. They're like, he's just a football player, and he's been that way since you watch him in high school. Like, you watch his high school tape, he's just a guy that knows how to make plays and knows how to play the game. Like, and you need those players specifically in those positions that you're talking about, like nickel.
And Baldy, my last one for you, kind of taking a step back, looking at the division. We know the Chiefs are the class of the AFC West, especially after this past week. But then you look around, and the Raiders just had a dominant win.
Well,
but was that because it was
the Giants?
Exactly, because that was at the Giants, and also teams get that boost after firing their coach. That with that first game after get a boost. We see the Chargers come out yesterday, and they looked good, I guess. I mean, good, much better than the Jets did. Are the Broncos kind of neck and neck with those other two teams, or is there a separation one way or the other with the Broncos and those other two?
Well, I mean, look, the Jets are one of those defenses that's in the upper echelon. And so the Chargers go there, and they looked awful for the most part. And if it wasn't for their defense, they probably wouldn't have won that game. So that's what this league is right now. There's 6 or 8 unbelievable defenses that are just hard to penetrate. That being said, you just got to win games in your division. That's how you're going to find out. The Raiders got to bounce this week. We'll see how long the bounce lasts. You're playing a freshman quarterback in Aiden O'Connell. Didn't make a mistake last week, but they didn't ask him to do a lot last week. And the Giants are just dysfunctional. So you kind of maybe you smoke cigars after it and you celebrate. New head coach. All right, but we'll see how that lasts. The Chargers. The one thing I'd say about the Chargers, when you do put Khalil Mack, Bosa, and Tui Pelotu and Morgan Fox on your defensive line,
Tui Pelotu,
you got a chance to really affect games and affect quarterbacks. And that can be an elite group. They haven't played a whole lot of snaps altogether because of injuries, but Tui Pelotu is a very good player.
Oh yeah.
So they've got a 4-man front right now that can really get after and affect quarterbacks. So I feel like the Chargers, they have weaknesses. They're kind of bunched up with a bunch of teams that are 500. And so we'll see who can come out of this, but anybody can come out of this. It's second half of the season determines who plays in January.
There you go. So you're telling me there's a chance for the Broncos. We'll take it. And Baldy, go enjoy a cigar after smoking this interview. We appreciate you jumping on with us.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long day for me, but I might have one later tonight. That's possible.
There we go.
Beautiful.
I love it.
Beautiful.
I love it. Thanks so much, Baldy.
See you Thursday,
Okay.
Baldy.
See you, James. Take care, guys. Yep.
See you.
Man, we should celebrate with some Primo Hoagies after that
are
one.
they here?
Yeah, do you smell it?
Oh, my
You'd
God.
be able to smell those.
I would be able to smell.
So
Somebody in there
good.
put a little smiley face in the comments and said, but I'm not having a broccoli Rob sandwich. Fine. And guess what? When I had that sandwich after the podcast was done a couple of weeks ago, what was the universal reaction by everybody who got one?
Amazing.
Their minds were blown,
Yeah.
completely blown. And I'm not even getting paid to say any of this stuff by Primos. But anybody who got that sandwich, their mind exploded.
And people that are saying, like, broccoli on a sandwich, I don't know. I was skeptical when I heard that it
incredible.
was broccoli on a sandwich, like a hot hoagie sandwich. Amazing. I mean,
incredible.
I might just get a sandwich just with that in it. That's how good it looks. So
Yeah, let's not go crazy.
you might have
It
some,
needs
some meat and
roast
cheese.
pork
Okay,
as well.
okay, fair. And so check them out over at Primo Hoagies. They got 2 locations in the Denver metro area. So check them out. If you want a platter for your parties, they've got that as well. If you want to cater, so go to primohoagies.com. It's not just a it's not just a hoagie. It's a Primo.
And if you've been hurt or seriously injured, check out our friends. Call them for a consultation. Baggins and Schenker, smash the 222-2222. They're here to help. And the great thing about them is they're completely free until they win money for your case. And they've won over $1 billion for their clients. So they have offices all over Denver, including Aurora, Inglewood, Fort Collins. If you need help or you are in an accident where you weren't at fault, I think that's key. You weren't at fault. It wasn't your fault. Car accidents, motorcycles, ride shares, pedestrians, trucks. Call them. set up a consultation, smash a 2-2-2-2-2-2-2.
Man, we come into shows wanting to talk about a couple of things, and then we get through like one thing. And I wanted to ask you guys a question before we had Baldy on, and we weren't able to get to it, but I'm happy we have some time right now because I want to look back 2 years ago when the Broncos traded Von Miller. After they won a game, they traded Von Miller to the Rams for a second and a third-round pick. We know Von goes out dominant in the playoffs, wins a Super Bowl, wins another Super Bowl with the Rams. Did the Broncos 2 years later, hindsight absolutely being 2020, did the Broncos make the right decision to move on from Von?
I think that was maybe, besides offensive line, was the number one area we were lacking in for the last 2 years was pass rush. We didn't have guys that can really put it together, even though Baron Browning was coming on. He was young, hadn't put it together yet. We didn't have a dominant pass rusher. Or rush to be feared. So I think they did make the wrong mistake in trading Von away because we missed his presence for a good amount of time.
There's no doubt that they certainly missed his presence. I'm gonna take the opposite approach and not just say that it was the right decision, but I think they probably should have made it even earlier to get first or two firsts back for him, and that's only a compliment to Von Miller just because of how good he is. But I think with pass rushes, especially just where the Broncos were, they tricked themselves thinking that they could win with the dominant defense year in and year out for like 7 years. You can win with the dominant defense. The Broncos you guys don't win the Super Bowl without that defense in 2015. But you have to have more resources on the offensive side of the ball in order to get there. Then you need that defense to take you over the top. And when is Von Miller proven he's the best? It's in clutch moments. It's at the end of games when the Broncos are winning to close out games, and it's in the playoffs, clutch. And the Broncos just didn't have that team where they could fully utilize Von in terms of closing out games when they're up. No, they had to make those game-winning drives on offense because they never had the lead, really. And even though the defense was good. So I think that it was the right move to move on from him. I think if you want to get into where it might have been a mistake, instead of paying Randy Gregory $14 million to come be with the Broncos, Von Miller was a free agent then too. Pay him $20 million instead, spend that extra $6 million to bring Von in, and I think that would have been the move where maybe the Broncos went the wrong direction.
So you're saying that Von got traded because the organization made bad choices on coaches, players, different picks.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
ultimately was on.
Oh, this is nothing against Von. Yeah, it's just they weren't able to fully utilize him. And then we see him go with the team that can utilize him, and he wins the Super Bowl that year and is dominant in it.
If I'm remembering this correctly, the plan was you move on from Von because you can't pay him and Bradley Chubb. Right?
Right.
That was the philosophy. It was, we have a 5th overall pick in Bradley Chubb, who the organization thought the world of and thought he brought everything to the position from power to speed, and we're going to get younger, and we're going to have Chubb essentially fill Von's role. Sadly, we never really saw them play a whole lot together, which was like so bizarre to see. Like every year it was like, we're going to see Bradley Chubb and Von Miller together, and then one of them would get hurt, and then you wouldn't see it together. But like that was the succession plan because you couldn't pay both of them. So you were going to get draft capital back for Von, get younger at your star pass rusher position. And then a litany of things have happened after that to where now you've moved on from Bradley Chubb as well. And you've had all these other moves that have cost you picks and done new things. So, like, I think, honestly, like, I mean, the Rams definitely won from it because it helped them win a Super Bowl. They were not just going to ship Von out anywhere. I mean, that is like that was told to me repeatedly. Like, if we weren't going to send him to a place that he had a chance to win and a place that he wanted to go to, we weren't going to do the trade. And I know some people say that's like insane, like to let a player have that amount of like, or the thought about the player's well-being in the trade.
Right.
But you have to remember like how rare of a player he is. We started this whole thing off with his stance in this organization and where it is. That's not a thing that happens very often. And so that was part of the trade. But that was the plan at the time. And you have to turn it over at some point. Every so often. And then there was the talk, remember when Von was going to maybe come back here after the Rams?
Oh, he was getting Broncos Country hype on social media.
It wasn't even close. Like, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
The numbers were like nowhere near each other
Right.
in what Denver wanted to pay and what Vaughn was looking for. And then we saw that. Remember, it was like when the Randy Gregory trade happened or signing happened. Everybody's like, well, that's what we could have got Vaughn for. And then like it was like the next day or whatever it was, the Vaughn signing came through. And like, okay, never mind. We weren't going to.
What was it? Vaughn got like $70 million guaranteed, and
Yeah.
Gregory got $28 million
Yeah, it
guaranteed.
was like wasn't even close.
Right.
But yeah, I thought that was the plan. It's just like it's another example of the variety of things that haven't gone exactly as planned since that trade.
What's wild, a couple of things surrounding this. I think it was a win-win-win for everyone involved. For Vaughn, although he didn't want to leave the Broncos, he wanted to retire a Bronco. He then got to go win another Super Bowl and then still get a massive payday after that. It was a win for the Rams, obviously a win for the Broncos. But I was thinking about this morning. The Rams paid a second and a third round pick for a half-year rental of Von Miller. That shows how good Vaughn is. It's not like they re-signed him after, and then it was only a second and third. A second and a third round pick for a half-year rental is wild.
That's when you're playing with big money, man.
Yes, exactly. I
They
mean,
only
that's when
have-
you're going all in.
That's not Vaughn's fault. They only have $74 million in dead money this year.
my gosh.
Just a little bit. So I think things are falling apart in with the Rams right now. But that's what you sometimes do. Moves like that, signings like they've done. You see this happen with organizations after they go all in to win a Super Bowl. But you won the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
I don't think Tampa's taking anything back from where they're at now and the amount of money that they have pushed down the line to try to win a Super Bowl, and they did with Tom Brady in that window. Then you go and look at a team like New Orleans. Remember, like, they kept trying to win. Was it 06 that Sean and Breeze won? And then they just
09.
and then they just kept pushing money down the line with Drew Brees, just really catapulting the organization into failure in any capacity with all the dead money that was piling up. This happens with teams. You just keep doing anything you can. Some organizations think that way. Not every organization in the league thinks that way. We'll do whatever we can because this is our window right now.
Yeah.
And the Rams capitalized off it and got one out of it.
Another incredible thing about Vaughn, he signed the richest contract in defensive history. He had that for 2 full years before Aaron Donald finally took him over. Typically, when a guy becomes the highest paid player on one side of the ball, that's like reset in a month. I mean, we saw it with the quarterback position like 4 times this offseason. So not only did he hold that for 2 years, he then played the entire contract through. I mean, Todd, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
A contract is good for the guaranteed money,
And
and
then
then teams either cut you, like the Broncos did with you. That happens like 99% of the time. Or they say, hey, no more guaranteed money. You want to take a pay cut? And then the
Exactly.
players either like, well, fine, I'm not going to get paid more. Or they're like, F you. Let me go. Let me go somewhere else. I mean, that is just insane that he signed that big of a deal, and he played the entire contract.
Yeah, that never happens.
it never
It didn't happen for me. Just the nature of the business. But that means a lot. I mean, I think for the organization, they definitely took care of him. I mean, I wouldn't say they just threw him to the wolves after he played and won a Super Bowl for us, but he's definitely got paid. He made a lot of money.
I don't know. I don't know a guy who had more leverage going into a negotiation on the defensive side of the ball than Vaughn did. Like, honestly, you're coming off of a Super Bowl MVP. How often do they give the MVP not to the winning quarterback? Like, it doesn't happen very often. But to be a defensive player, to win Super Bowl MVP, as we started, to be the most popular person in Denver, like in this entire region, no other sports team was really doing much at all.
And he won the MVP. Sorry to cut you off. He won the MVP versus Peyton Manning as the quarterback.
As the quarterback.
And everybody knew that was his last game. Like,
Yeah.
I think before the game even happened, like, Peyton Manning was the MVP. And, like, he had to go out there and, like, change everybody's mind.
Yeah, exactly.
good
And then
point.
Peyton rides off. He has he retires. Now it's not even a question. Vaughn's the face of the franchise and the reigning Super Bowl MVP. Ask about it. It's tattooed on his calf, on his thigh right here. And so, like, the amount of leverage he had in that negotiation, plus, I will say this, and some players don't understand it, he played the game so well. He did every interview. He was everywhere in the community. I'm not saying he faked the community stuff. He's tremendous in the community. That was just him with Vaughn's vision and things like that. But he knew how to get the public perception on his side in Bronco Country. He was loved, still is loved, but he never turned an interview down. He was everywhere. He used his personality to his advantage. His leverage was through the roof for that negotiation. It was awesome from his side of things.
And what, he's 26 years old too?
Oh,
I mean,
my God.
like prime, but just the start of your prime. And plus, you just showed it that you're entering your prime right there. And then plus, once Payton left, well, everything was going to be about the defense. That was the team's path to success, was the defense. So you can't let the best player, not only on the team, but on that side that you're going to win, go. No.
Oh, he just sat there and was like, just let me know when the number gets to where we need it.
Exactly. I think it always works out better for guys that show up every day and are in the building. If you're having negotiations and you're sitting out, I think it rarely works out. Or you end up getting less money than you wanted anyway. I think being in the building, showing your face, like you said, doing all the interviews, you're playing the game. You got to play the game.
Do you remember that day
Which one?
that the contract got signed?
No.
Oh, I was wondering
say
if all you guys like forced him into spending a boatload of money on all of
He
you
was
or
already
anything.
spending a boat.
Oh, man. And just thinking about how he spent that off season too. I mean, he was the king of the world.
He was everywhere.
He was everywhere. And man, it's going to be interesting. Broncos playing him this week. I can't wait to continue to break this down. And before we get out of here, let's get to some super chats. You hear, I know we had at least a couple rolling. We've got one coming in from our friend Vegas 702 says, do you lease or own the Benz?
Talking to you.
Talking to me?
Talking to you, Zach.
Talking about me.
Yeah.
About the Benz.
Don't you drive a Benz?
The Mercedes Benz. Yeah, of course he's talking to me. That's why I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not quite sure he's talking to me, Todd.
We own.
There you go.
What a weird question also.
Very weird.
Next one coming in from, that's why I was like, am I not
Makes you feel like he's sitting
this?
outside or something.
Right,
like,
yeah. No, he's actually in
do you
the
have
Benz
the
right now
insurance
waiting
for
for
what I'm about to do to your car?
Check up.
J-Day says, Tremont Smith been balling on special teams, not talked about enough. Yeah, he absolutely has been. And there's been a few players that the Broncos brought in this offseason to make their special teams better, and they've really lived up to it.
That has worked. Remember, that was a big part of this offseason, talking about, everything that they were going to do with special teams. It was a part that, like, Sean Payton was just livid about what went down the past season, and then who they brought in, the minds that they brought in. That has been a really good bright spot over the last several weeks, the way they've played in all phases, actually, of special teams.
Yeah, it's so true. Kick return, that really everything but punting. And punting, it's really come down to Riley Dixon, just not being, because the coverage has been there. And final one from Nick says, is Von ranked number 2 all-time Bronco behind John Elway?
Yeah. I don't think it's, honestly, I do not think it's debatable.
What about Terrell Davis? Super Bowl MVP, just like Von.
Won
2
an MVP.
Super Bowls. A lot of
Hall
people
of
think
Famer?
he might, Hall of Famer. A lot of people think he might be, what put the team over the top with John.
No.
No.
I still think Vaughn. Honestly,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. I think it's, I'd probably put him 2 as well.
Yeah. Because you could say Vaughn played with Peyton too, and
Right.
like Terrell played with John.
Right.
In that sense. But I don't think, and I love TD. I mean, great buddy, like awesome. Like, I think if you look at careers, Vaughn's career is a better career than Terrell Davis's career.
Yeah.
Vaughn's a first ballot Hall of Fame. TD
Yeah.
get in on the first ballot.
Yeah.
Took TD a minute to get in.
So
now
then-
the length of career hurt Terrell
Right.
Davis, right? The injuries, and then so that he wasn't dominant for as long as they'd like for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Vaughn's been dominant his entire career.
Yeah.
Like his career's better. I'd say Vaughn is number 2 behind John, which is, I mean, and Elway's like, Super Bowls as a executive player, like it's just kind of untouched air. Maybe, I don't know. Vaughn's not done. He always said he wants to be a GM. He's been shadowing Brandon Beane
He has
in Buffalo. He hangs out with Brandon Beane a lot. He tries to see what the GMs are doing. Maybe Vaughn comes back to Denver and becomes a GM someday.
2 more guys to throw in the mix. That'd be wild. 2 more guys to throw in the mix would be first ballot Hall of Famers of Champ Bailey. First ballot Hall of Famer. I still wouldn't put him above Vaughn. I mean, you just look at the success. Now, a corner, are you really going to be able to be the Super Bowl MVP and be able
People
to
probably
drive
say
your
that before
team?
Super Bowl 50.
Yeah.
A pass rusher isn't going to win
That's a
MVP.
good point. And then the other person would be Peyton that people would put in this list. Only playing 4 years, I think it just makes it almost impossible to jump Von there. But I think those are the guys that need to be mentioned in there.
Oh, big time, for sure. But that just shows you where Von is at.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, like face of the franchise as a defensive player is hard.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Face of a region as a defensive player is even harder.
Yep.
It's-
And that's why first time in 2 years since Von left, the Broncos are going to be playing against Von Miller. It's going to be fun. Monday night, we're going to continue to break this down. And stay tuned to tomorrow. We're going live at noon. Pat Surtain joined the show.
Ooh.
So stay tuned. It's going to be a fun one. We will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for rolling with us.
Love it.
We all silly like the mayor.